So Thursday was not a good day for me. And for this story, there are two things you need to know about me. One is that I live on an island that is accessible, to me at least, only by ferry. And number two is that I drive a 1980 Volvo, which has had car problems in the past. And yes, this is a story about my car. So on Thursday, I mistakenly decided that I would go over town on the ferry and do some shopping. So I was on the ferry reading A Clash of Kings, which I'm almost done with, yes. We docked and everyone started going and I went and turned my key on and my car started and then it died. And I was like, oh god, oh no, because the worst place for your car to die is on the ferry. I'm sitting there trying to turn my key over and my engine's going, but lights are coming on, but nothing's happening and the cars are leaving and I'm all alone and all the ferry people are looking down at me like, oh god. The guy comes down to me and he's like, has your car ever died on the ferry before? And I was like, no. And he's like, we're gonna have to push it off with a tractor. So I was like, okay. Ferry worker got in the front seat of my car because I was kind of nervous to drive it off, and he put my car in neutral and took the brake off, and then this tractor thing just pushed the car off with me in the passenger seat, and we just flew down the ferry and like off of it, and they pushed it around to sort of like a parking space. And they were like, bye, good luck. I sort of laughed about it because it was so ridiculous to have your car just like pushed off of a ferry. Slightly humiliating, but kind of funny. So I got in the front seat and I was like, well, I'll just try to start it. And it started. Like, thanks for nothing, Volvo. What the hell? So I was like, well, maybe it was just like a fluke, like a one-off fluke thing. So I drove to the mall and parked, and part of me was like, oh god, now I've turned it off, is it ever going to turn back on again? So I went and did some shopping, and when I came back, I got in the car, turned my key, and it just rolled over and didn't start. No. So I tried again, and then I ended up calling my dad and being like, oh my god, my car, ah! And after I hung up with him, I turned it and it started. And I was like, oh god, okay. I have to drive to the ferry. So I abandoned the rest of my shopping and just drove straight back to the ferry. And I was in line for quite a while and I never turned my engine off. I was just like, oh god. But once I got into the ferry lane, like I paid, I got into the ferry lane. And once I got into the ferry lane, I had to turn off my engine because it was like a half-hour wait. So I was just praying like, oh please, like start. I just want to get on the ferry at least, because at least if I got on the ferry and it died on the ferry, they could push me off and at least I'd be on the island. Once the ferry docked and other people were starting to start up their car, I started up my car and there was this man standing outside my car, like just a random man who was like yelling, Eric, where are you? Show yourself. I have no idea why he was yelling this. He was standing by my car and I turned my car on and it went for some reason, this weird noise. And the guy like who was yelling for Eric was like, oh god, like, oh my god, what was that? So I knew it wasn't like, a normal sounding noise. And then my car wouldn't start again. Oh my god. Ugh. It's so humiliating, like everyone's around, just driving off, like, look at that lame-o, their car won't start, like, ugh. For some reason there was like 3 or 4 other people who were having car troubles, so one of the ferry people was like walking around with a jump start kit, and so I waved to her and was like, me too, but like my battery wasn't dead, but she tried to jump start it anyway, but it didn't work. So I had to have another tractor push me out of the ferry lane, and they pushed me to this park with a big parking lot that's by the ferry. Pushed my car into the parking spaces like completely crooked. So I was in like 5 parking spaces in this park, and then they're just like, good luck, like drove away. Great. I don't have AAA, which is the first mistake that I learned. Like, get AAA if you have an old car that has problems. I have like farmer's insurance, like help thing. And I was on the phone with this woman for like an hour, I felt. Like I was sitting in my car, my phone was dying. Like I only had like 20 5% battery left and it was going down. And I was on the phone with this woman for like an hour, and she was in Ontario, Canada, and she did not understand the concept of the ferry really at all. So she like was trying to help me, and she was like, I'll call you back when I find something out. So she called me back and she was like, okay, this is what I figured out. Like, I can get you two tows. Like, the first tow will tow you onto the ferry and put your car onto the ferry. And then the second tow will pick your car up on the other side and tow it to the repair shop. And I was like, that's not how the ferry works. The ferry is big enough that it can accommodate like semi-trucks on it. It's a big ferry. And they're not gonna let you just like you can't tow a car onto the ferry and then unload it from a tow truck and then back the tow truck off the ferry. Like, they won't let you do that. Plus it would take forever and totally inconvenience everyone. And it's just like, and they wouldn't let you, like, you can't turn around on the ferry. Like, doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I was like, no, like, that's not gonna work. Like, I was freaking out. And so she was like, okay, like, if you don't want to do it that way, blah, blah, blah. It's like, you can't do it that way. You just can't. It's not that I don't want to, you just can't. So she was like, I'll call you back. She finally called me back and was like, okay, I found some tow companies that can do it. One is gonna be $150 extra, another one's $300 extra, or one is $700 extra, and we'll cover like $150, but these you have to pay on top. And I was like, what? $700? Like, literally all they have to do is like go on the ferry, and then the shop is like 1 mile from the ferry. It's crazy talk. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do the $150, like, tow. Like, what choice do I have at this point? I don't know. So once I have the tow thing settled, I decided I'm gonna go get my ferry money back, because I paid for the ferry and I never made it on the ferry. So I was like, I'm gonna go get a refund. So I walked all the way over to the ferry ticket booth, and the ferry ticket booth has like 2 windows like this, and I was at this window. So as I'm at that window waiting to ask for a refund, I look across into the other window, and right at that window in his car is my next door neighbor, which was really strange moment. I was like, oh my god, my next door neighbor. Once he went through, I got my refund, and once he went through, I went and like walked to his car, and him and his whole family were in their car, and I told them what was going on, and they were like, oh my gosh, and they tried to help me find like a cheaper tow, but we couldn't. Like, 150 was the cheapest. But his wife gave me her phone, which was like a blessing, because my phone was like dead. And so I could like call my family and like let them know what was going on. They couldn't really like do anything else for me like at that point. Like, I already had a tow coming, and so they went on the ferry and like went home, and I went back to my car. So finally, after what felt like 200 years, the guy with the tow truck showed up. And I've never like had a tow. I've had 2 tows with this car so far, and I've never had a tow truck that was like, you know, that hook kind that you see all the time, like going down the road, that have like a crank and a hook, and they're really kind of like compact and small. I always get those ones with a huge bed where they like lock your car in and pull it up onto the bed, and then it's just riding there. I don't know what the difference is. I don't know why one comes and not the other. Anyway, this guy shows up, and he pulls my car up, and he's like, okay, let's go. So we drive up the road to get in the ferry line, and the ferry line is so long. It's like a 2-hour wait. And he was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to, like, I don't want to sit through this. Let's cut the line. And I was like, okay, because it's sort of like, if it's not illegal, it's highly frowned upon. Let's say that. I've been known to be mad at people who've cut me off in the line, but I was like, well, it's like on you, not me, like whatever. And so we like drove around the back streets of Mukilteo like to find a side road, and it was just like a really ridiculous, like he was peering out, like, and I was like, go, 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 and we like got into the line, and nothing happened, no one caught us. We just sat and waited for the ferry, and I just read my book, and it was boring. So then the rest of the story is not that eventful. We just rode on the ferry, and we went up the road to the repair shop and dumped off my car, and my dad met me there, and then we paid the guy, and he left, and we went home. Unfortunately, like, this is probably just the worst luck. Like, the people at the repair shop that I go to, like, my dad went back there Friday morning and they weren't there at the time they were supposed to be open, and it turns out they went on a little spring break holiday for a 4-day weekend, and so they won't even be back till Tuesday. So I'm trapped. I have no car, and I am not super optimistic that the problem is gonna be 1, fixable, or 2, very cheap to fix. So we'll see what happens there. My car has never been cheap to fix, so it's gonna be bad news either way. And I felt so bad for myself that I decided that I deserved a present, so I bought myself a perfume, which, I mean, is that just fine? Is that okay? Like, I had a really terrible day and my car broke down and it's gonna cost more money to fix my car, so let's spend some more money on an expensive present for myself. It's great logic, but it's so pretty. So anyway, I just thought I would share my tale of woe with you, since it was sort of traumatic, but kind of funny also at the time. I wasn't that upset at the time. I'm more upset like in retrospect than I actually was on that day. I was just kind of like, wow, this is bad luck. Like, what a terrible situation. Haha, oh well. I'll see you next week. Bye.